Welcome to Community Cocktails with Kimberly, hosted by Kimberly Woodard, a realtor for nearly 20 years with Ebby Halliday Realtors. Join her every first and third Wednesday of the month as she meets with the top community influencers to help you get to know the area you want to call home. Don't just love your home, love your community. And now, your host, Kimberly Woodard.
Welcome, viewers, to this episode of Community Cocktails with Kimberly. I am so excited to share information with you on this segment, and I think you're going to find it very informational. We hear so much in the news today and in the papers and whatever you read on the internet about the housing market and the sales and how our actually nationwide it's just going bonkers. But we haven't really touched about what the rental market is and how is that market and is there any difference? So today I have a special guest, Mayur here. He's the Director of Property Management with Ebby Halliday Realtors. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you, and let's talk the residential rental market. So,
Yes.
so how is it comparing to the residential sales market?
Speaking generally, there are a lot of things that are mirroring the sales market. So low inventory is a big problem, and a lot of demand, where we have a lot of people moving from out of state who are first looking to rent before they are making a home purchase.
Right.
And so the people that are already in leases are kind of staying put, waiting to see what happens in terms of COVID restrictions and just general fear about the job market and their uncertainty about what their job positioning is. So the people that are in leases are not moving, and we have an influx of people coming from out of state here for new jobs. And so that's created a similar situation to the sales market, where prices are starting to drive up and the inventory is remaining low. So there's a lot of demand, a lot of interest on every single property that we list for lease.
So if you are a possible renter, you're coming here and you say, hey, I'm going to rent, or we'll see what happens. What's your advice and some tips for those renters on how to navigate this competitive market?
So there's four categories that most landlords are looking at whenever they're evaluating a potential tenant. So they're looking at their credit score, they're looking at their criminal history or criminal background, and then they're wanting to verify employment and rental history. So first things first, make sure that all four of those categories are clean, that you have good credit, that you're paying all your bills on time. And most landlords are not necessarily looking for a specific score, but they're just looking to see that you pay all your bills on time.
Right.
And then a clean criminal history with no felonies, especially, is what most landlords are looking at. And then income, you want to be sure that you're making typically 3 times the rent amount, and that kind of ensures a landlord that you're able to cover the rent as well as your other living expenses. And then clean rental history, no issues with previous landlords, always paid on time, no damage to the property, no complaints from the neighbors, no broken leases, evictions, stuff like that is what they're looking for. But whenever you have all applications that look great, the few ways that you can make your application stand out are, one, to offer more rent. So even if it's just a little bit, if the rent is $2,000, if you offer $2,050, that's additional money in the landlord's pocket. They're going to consider you a little bit more than anybody else. A longer lease term. So if they're offering a 12-month lease and you might ask for an 18-month or 2-year lease, that's another way to stand out, because that's going to decrease the vacancy time for a landlord. Additional security deposit. Most leases are asking for 1 month's rent as a security deposit, but if you're willing to put up a double security deposit or even more, that's another thing that the landlords will consider. And then asking for less work. So similar to the sales, not asking for any contingencies or anything to be done at the property, accepting the property as is. And again, that saves the landlord money. So these are all 4 ways that it puts more money in the landlord's pocket, essentially, and that's going to make the application look a little bit stronger.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I know from my experience, I've had a landlord and first day 10 applications, and it's just, it's crazy, and it's tough. Like, what do you do? And I've seen this, pets. I mean, I've had a struggle with, some of my clients with, pets. Are you seeing some more landlords kind of cutting back on, with more pet restrictions than before in this market?
In this market, because they can be a little bit more
Yeah.
picky, yes. So typically, if all things are equal and one person has two golden retrievers and one person doesn't,
Right.
then they're going to be looking towards the person without pets in most situations. But it varies from landlord to landlord, because some landlords are pet lovers and they're accepting of everybody with pets, and they don't really consider that a hindrance to the application. But we have other landlords that have always just said no pets.
Right. Right.
um, we see about 55 to 60% of all applications coming with a pet of some kind.
Yeah.
So we try to make sure the landlords are open to accepting pets. And then, of course, we're seeing a lot of applications with support animals, and that's
Yep.
kind of a whole separate
That's
thing
a whole
to navigate through.
yes.
And in terms of like fair housing and
Right.
making reasonable accommodation for people with an emotional support animal or service animal,
Right.
that's another thing that we help landlords kind of navigate through.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that could be a whole topic.
Right. Yeah, of course.
Um, so, we have our renters that are, out there trying to navigate and trying to, find a property, um, and tips on them. What about the landlords? What are you telling your landlords that are, looking to rent in this marketplace, and how are you coaching them during this process?
I mean, a lot of it is the same in
Okay.
any market. You make sure that your property is presentable and
Right.
in good condition. A potential tenant that's walking through the property and sees a lot of deferred maintenance, or paint that hasn't been taken care of, stains on the carpet, and then advertising the property as is a big red flag
Right.
to a potential tenant. They think, if they're not doing this work, what else are they not going to do when I'm a
Right.
tenant? Are they going to delay on fixing the AC in the middle of July?
Right.
Stuff like that. So making sure the property is clean and in what we call a rent ready condition is probably the most important. And then just making sure that it's priced correctly for the market. Some landlords will get greedy and just want to try and get the top dollar, the most that they can get. But often those properties will sit on the market for weeks, sometimes even months, and they just are so concerned with that, what the rent amount is. And then as the months go by, they're losing rent.
Right.
So they're netting a lot less. So it's not often what you get, it's what you net.
Right.
And that's what we tell landlords a lot, is that it's better to get a qualified tenant in there sooner, even if it's for $100 less, rather than waiting 2 months and trying to get that extra $100. You end up losing in
Right.
the long run.
Right. Because you're paying for the upkeep of the property and, all that, whereas you're not generating that income that hopefully you do when you have a
Right.
renter in there.
Utilities, if they have a mortgage, then they have
Right.
to continue making that payment without any rent income
Right.
coming in.
Yeah.
Landscaping, all of that. Yes.
Yep. And that can sometimes be a little ouch.
Right.
So, well, also in this marketplace, yes, the sales, it's a tough market for purchasers, but we still have people going out and buying investment properties because, we're seeing the shortage on the investment. So, what do you give tips for that maybe buyer out there that is looking to be a landlord, of what he should be looking at for his properties, and any things that maybe you see that rent better than others, or just what he should be looking for a property and that would be good in this marketplace?
There's no real exact formula that's going
Yeah.
to create the perfect rental property. We have $10,000 a month rentals where tenants get evicted for non-payment, and then we have $1,000 a month rentals where they stay in there for 10 years.
Right.
They're perfect tenants, right? But in general, I think that looking at the school district is often important. So at least an above average school district is always going to have a demand for people to move there and stay long term. Because if they're concerned about the schools, they want that continuance for their children that are in that program. And so they're not typically looking to move every year, whereas a condo in Uptown might be somebody that's more interested in moving
Right.
every year or every so often. Then you have a vacancy year after year, and that is the biggest expense that a landlord's ever going to have, is the turnover between tenants. So looking at schools, evaluating the neighborhood, seeing if there's an HOA, if the HOA has any restrictions on leasing, that's always important to look at. Just to give you an example, somebody just purchased an investment property and the HOA actually doesn't allow leasing in the first year after construction. And so now he has to sit on that property for 12 months and without being able to lease it out, and he lives out of state. So just doing your
Yeah.
due diligence,
Yeah.
getting all that information up front about what the restrictions are for that particular house is really important whenever you're evaluating where to buy a property.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean that's an ouch. I mean, he's got to make up a lot.
Right.
after
And
the 12
luckily the sales market is doing
Yeah.
great, so he'll continue to get some
to- yeah.
appreciation there.
So if he really decides he doesn't want to be a landlord after a year, he probably could sell it and make some
Right,
profit.
right.
Well, let's talk about the services that Ebby Halliday Property Management offers. Those that are looking for, a landlord that is looking to, put their property on the market.
Yeah, so within our company,
Yeah.
we offer full service leasing and property management. So we basically can help a landlord from start to finish, from everything from the initial marketing, showings of the property, and then once we have somebody that's interested, we have the applications. Everything is done online through our website. So we handle all of the app screening, running the credit and criminal background checks, verifying their employment and rental history, and then the lease signing, the inspections of the property. And then once a tenant's in there, it's the monthly rent collection, overseeing repairs and maintenance. So we assist landlords through that whole process to the end of the lease, and then either negotiate a lease renewal, or if the tenant decides to move, then we assist with the move out process, the move out inspection, itemization of the tenant security deposit, and then start that whole cycle over again. So really full service. One of the big things that I've noticed that stands out with Ebby Halliday Property Management versus other companies is that you're always going to get a licensed realtor as your property management agent, and then you'll also just have one single point of contact through that whole cycle.
Yes.
There are a lot of institutional investment property management companies
Right.
that are coming into the market now, managing tens of thousands of properties across the country,
Right.
and that's appealing to some people. But to just one individual, if I own one property in Plano, I kind of get lost in the shuffle of that company, right? And so I might be talking to somebody for maintenance and somebody else for rent collection and somebody else for leasing.
Right.
And so you never really know who to contact. So with Ebby, you get a single point of contact. They're always going to be licensed, knowing that they are maintaining a continuing amount of education. And so I think that's a real benefit whenever you have somebody that, especially in the property management world where things are constantly evolving, laws are constantly being updated.
Right.
And so I think that's a really important distinction between us and another management company.
No, I think that is because it does make a huge difference. And you're that person is here. They're like looking at your property versus some of these big companies where they are managing thousands of properties, and not they can't always be at every property, and
Right.
so you're kind of just a number.
Yeah, exactly. And we never want our clients to feel that way. We want each one of our clients to feel like they're our only client.
Right.
So they, almost always have the cell phone number of their property manager, and they're not a W-2 employee that just checks out at 5
Right.
o'clock and doesn't answer their phone on nights or weekends. They're always available to our clients to help out.
And it's so important because for a landlord, they bought this property for a financial investment, and knowing that someone else is looking out for their best interest on their financial investment makes a huge, huge impact
Right.
to them. And because again, we were talking about the numbers and looking at that, will also be, having someone that's checking on the property, making sure that someone doesn't just move out every night.
Yeah.
We've also had that
Unfortunately,
happen.
that happens.
It does. You get the call from the neighbor that's like, "Oh, well, I saw something weird going on at midnight."
Yeah. We get
Maybe
a lot
truck
of
in the
calls from
middle.
neighbors. They're often our eyes and ears.
They are. They are. But it's a good thing. I mean, it's a positive because it does help. Because obviously we're not living right there, and so it makes that impact that we can know where the grass has been really high.
Right.
So,
And a lot of our owners are out of state
right.
or out of the country even. And so they don't have eyes and ears on the ground. They can't drive by
Right.
just to check on their property. So it's really important that they have somebody that they can trust locally.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Again, back to it's their financial investment. That's why they're buying these properties. for that reason, and they want to make sure that those properties are being taken care of and are continue to appreciate in this marketplace versus getting run down and maybe depreciating. I know things can depreciate in a good market.
Right.
You just won't get what the other one your neighbor gets. So, but it's just been, I would say, this rental, this whole marketplace has just been an unbelievable time, and I'm seeing so many people as well, submitting just like they're submitting offers, maybe 5 offers on properties, they're submitting 5 or 6 applications. And obviously, with the applications come sometimes application fees and things like that for those prospective, tenants. And so it can cost them a little bit in order to.
Yeah. But one of the suggestions I always make is that if you are out there looking for a property, is that you work with an agent on the tenant side, because they can communicate with the listing agent, sometimes the owner directly,
Right.
and ask questions about what they're looking for specifically that might not be in the listing. And you get a feel for, okay, my tenant or my applicant will qualify for this property based on the information they've given,
Mhm.
or we should look elsewhere and not waste $50 to $100 for their
Right.
application fee and have to do that 5 or 6 times down the road just to get approved.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's really important to work with an agent and have them kind of speak on your behalf, and get a feel for what the landlord's looking for before you submit your application and pay that fee.
Yep. No, I agree. And I think too, for those tenants, what really also impacts, just like, people, I know we talk it's back and forth on letters and, how people put that, but for landlords, it does make a little bit of a difference. It's a different perspective because someone's living in their property. They're looking at this person as, this is my financial investment. I want to know, they want to know more than just on the application. Um, they want to know a little bit about that person. So it's kind of like, a cover letter for your resume is what I, sometimes tell people as your application is that they want to know that someone is going to take care of their property, that, they're going to treat it like their own. Whether, because some of the, landlords, it was their personal property and they've kept it because they have, a heart with it. It's not just financial, it's, maybe a little bit of emotional as well.
Right.
And so I think, and I know there's been different things about, letters, but I think it does give us just a forefront of who this person is, and, what they're doing, because they see so much on the application, but they want to know, who is this person? Or if you have the animals, what kind of animals are they? You know, are they, friendly, or pictures of the animals, I think helps as well, especially if you've got animals that are larger than, what most landlords,
Yeah, of course.
and, things to that nature, just anything to identify a little bit more than just what the, you know, fill in the blanks.
Right. And that's one of the great things that we do, is that we also screen the pets. So
Oh,
we use a service called petscreening.com.
oh,
And so in addition to getting the applicant's
yeah,
information, we also get the pet's information,
very true.
vaccination records, vet information, microchip information, breed info, pictures of the pet. So whenever we're presenting an application to a landlord, they have a very complete idea of who's going to be living in the property. And I think what we try to do is paint a picture
Yeah,
of who's going to be in the property and how they're going to be taking care of the property without giving them information that could potentially
right,
violate fair housing or
right,
something like
right.
that. So
Yeah,
that's always a big thing that we try to protect our owners from.
yeah,
Opening themselves up to a fair housing violation can be very costly.
yes,
and
yes.
so and so we try to present only the information that they need to make a decision, but at the same time putting it together to
In a
create kind of a
package.
picture.
No, I love that. I love pet. That's so fun.
Yeah, it gives them a FIDO score actually. So it's
Wow.
like their FICO score, but for the doggies.
Okay, so I have to. So Lil Bird told me about this. This is so off the rental market, but I heard that you have this fascination about donuts. And you're on this quest for like the perfect donut and the best donut places. So I know I want to know, and I know my kids want to know, and my viewers want to know. Tell us more about this.
Okay. I mean, I've always had a sweet tooth.
Okay.
And so this goes back 40 years almost. But I think once I moved to Dallas, I just really started to kind of cultivate that sweet tooth as more into donuts. It's a sweet that you can eat in the morning and it's perfectly acceptable. And I think that's what I love about it. But there's a really great donut scene in Dallas. So if you want like the top choices, I got that. So I would say my favorite donut place right now is Detour Donuts, which is in Frisco.
Okay.
And they just make these really innovative flavors. It's crafted really well. It's family owned. Like they're really sweet, the donuts and the owners.
Oh.
And that's probably my favorite.
Okay.
There's some really good ones down in Dallas. The Salty Donut is down in the Bishop Arts area.
Okay.
Really great donuts. They make them on a brioche bun. Fantastic.
Oh.
Yeah.
Ooh, and I love brioche.
And probably my original favorite donut place is Hypnotic Donuts, which is by White Rock Lake in Dallas. Just again, really great flavors, really cool vibe inside there. It's kind of a small place, but they got a cool kind of hippie vibe in there, so it's really fun to be inside.
Oh, very fun. So we've got 3 locations right now, viewers, to go check out.
We could again go on and on about this if we wanted to, but
well, I know. I mean, my boys are big on their donuts. I mean, every weekend, they have to have donuts. It's Saturday, Sunday. It kind of depends on what their tennis schedule is. And if they can't, then they usually have it on Monday if it's too much for them. But we will have to check those out as well as my viewers. Well, I've had so much fun today.
Yeah,
and
this has been great.
We've all learned so much about what's going on in the rental market and tips for potential tenants as well as landlords out there. And so thank you so much and cheers.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to contact Kimberly with your real estate needs, you can reach her at kimberlywoodard.ebby.com. We hope you enjoyed our guest this week, and remember, don't just love your home, love your community.